Thanks for stopping by. It means a lot to us tonight. Tonight we are celebrating our 42nd year as a club. Along with that, we are honoring Morgan. 38 years ago, our guest speaker graduated from ISU.
Wow.
No, not Idaho State, but Iowa State.
Iowa.
Morgan left rural Salmon, Idaho for better opportunities in the Idaho Falls. This is where he joined Rise and Shine, and I remember him practicing his 1994 speech, stuck to a bucket in a gravel pit off Pancari Drive. It's no longer there. He'd start with a mouthful of marbles and run his speech. Each time he delivered it, he gave it with one less marble. By the time he had it polished to perfection, he'd actually lost all of his marbles. This was the 1994 speech that beat out Jock Elliott. And it's interesting because when I went to compete in internationals, Jock Elliott beat me out to win the competition. So there was a vicious circle there. Mm-hmm. And this was when TI awarded Morgan with a gigantic silver belt buckle with 4 letters on it, WCTM, and he'll stand up later on and he'll show you that. This evening's speech is about ticks. That's right, I said ticks. The introspective of contest speaking. This will help you get ready for that next contest season. Okay, this will be roughly 12 to 15 minutes, give or take. Members and guests, don't get too close to your Zoom screen because Morgan's enthusiasm is highly contagious. Please jot down any questions you may have because Morgan will have a Q&A afterwards. At this time, please unmute yourselves. That's right, I said unmute and share with Morgan your laughter and applause. I give you the one and the only Morgan McArthur.
Oh, Stevie Gale. So good to see you. And what an honor it is to be here with 3505, Rise and Shine. The time might have changed, but it's great to be with the group. Fantastic. And thanks to the miracle that is Zoom, in the calamity that is the pandemic, we can make this happen without having to get onto an airplane. Fantastic. So 1993, Oakland, California. And look, so much of the whole contest thing has changed since then. But back in the day, in 1993, it was the regional speech competition in Oakland. It was Region 1, and I was the 8th of 9 speakers that evening in a hotel that was forgettable, but I knew I was in trouble. And as the speech contest unfolded, contestant after contestant, 7 minutes and 30 seconds each, I knew this was an uh-oh sort of a moment, because each of those speeches was dramatically different to the one that I had brought to the party. And I had misgivings about my choice and my preparation. And even in that moment, by now we're at about speaker number 4, we're halfway to me. And I'm thinking, I need to change my speech because I am so dramatically different than what's on presentation here. And yet, as I looked at the head table, if you've ever participated in a conference at a district level, I guess region is no more, but at these higher level conferences, there's a head table of dignitaries, be they district dignitaries, regional dignitaries, and in this instance, a fellow who's no longer with us was the representative from Toastmasters International, a man named Stan Stills. And I looked at Stan, and Stan, sitting at the head table, had fallen asleep. Oh dear, this did not look good. Speaker number 6, then 7, And then it was me. Oh, the moment of truth, friends. The moment of truth. And I'll push pause on that and finish that story in a little bit. But teaching through all of my contest experience, I joined Rise and Shine in 1987, began competing immediately, participated in humorous speech contests, took a drubbing on multiple occasions by a legend in District 15, vice president of Key Bank, and a 5-time finalist in the World Championship of Public Speaking, a man named John Howard. The late John Howard was a legend, and I learned a lot of lessons at his contests. He thumped me several times, and I learned from all of those lessons. But one takeaway that has really stood the test of time since my involvement from early days in Toastmasters, when people say to me, what's the secret of effective public speaking? I say, well, just be yourself. That's so simple. And actually, it's a little over simple, at least in my case, because there are sort of two corollaries to that. And the second corollary is to be yourself is to find yourself, right? That's an even harder task. And once we find ourselves, then share ourselves. Many years ago, I paid a lot of money to a professional speaking hero named Lou Heckler. Imagine being a professional speaker with a last name Heckler. But nonetheless, I paid Lou Heckler a lot of money to come and spend a weekend at his home in Gainesville, Florida. And a feature of my personal pathology is that I have always felt like I'm never good enough. I've got a tattoo somewhere on my body or in my brain that says NGE, never good enough. And I said to Lou Heckler, who am I, right? I'm a vanilla flavored sort of fella without any phenomenal accomplishments. Who am I when, you know, there are people out there on the circuit who are have climbed Everest. I've met those people who've won Olympic gold medals. I've met some of those people. Nobel Prize winners. I've been lucky enough through this organization to have met some of those people. I'm not one of those people. And Lou Heckler very quickly corrected me, as I will share with you. And he said, you know what? People aren't paying to hear about your accomplishments. They're paying to hear you. Oh, be yourself, find yourself, and then share yourself. And I think about effective speakers, and I'll invite you to think about people that you have experienced as speakers that you go, wow. And pull back on that a little bit and ask yourself, what is it that makes them so effective, so moving, so charismatic, so memorable? And I will suggest, at least in my experience, that effective speakers are both emotional and they're personal. Emotional. Ooh, does that mean you're going to make me cry? No, not necessarily. But I'm trained as a veterinarian and spent a long time in veterinary school learning about the nuances and the physiology and the pathology of four-legged animals. And I've come away with the understanding that the strangest animal of all is the one that stands on two legs. Humans are both irrational and emotional. We pride ourselves as a species on having this wrinkly cortex of a brain, the thinking brain, but in fact our lives are really owned by a brain that is even deeper, sort of brain number 2, that is the limbic brain or the feeling brain. All of our experiences that are memorable are attached to some form of emotional resonance. So humans are emotional, and if we can reach into our reservoir of personal experiences, and an indicator of something that would be good speech material would be if it generates emotion in us, that emotion is contagious, and if it generates emotion and movement in our psyche, it can do so for others. So think again about effective speakers that you have experienced, and I'll challenge you to look at them through that lens and say, are they emotional, and are they sharing something personal? And while I was putting these remarks together, gifts come wrapped in really strange packages, and the muse shows up at the strangest of times. But I picked up a book that I read some time ago, and interestingly enough, it's written by a fellow named Dr. Mark Lewis, M-A-R-C, first name, Lewis, L-E-W-I-S, and it's called The Biology of Desire. And the subtitle is Why Addiction is Not a Disease. These days I work for University of Wisconsin Extension, and at one point I was involved with a community-wide substance abuse program. So I was really keen to understand as best one can about this addiction business, and being a scientist slash curious sort of fella, I'm really keen on knowing how the brain works. And so I cracked this book open and I look at the places that I have previously highlighted, and I thought, ooh, wait a second. We're going to talk about effective speakers being emotional and personal. Here is a nugget, and I want to read just a little bit from this introduction to this book about addiction from this fella that to me makes a lot of sense. He says, Dr. Lewis says, I am a neuroscientist and a professor. It's my job to teach students whatever I know about the brain. I've taught and done research on emotional development in the brain for most of my career. But after my first decade of lecturing, I began to sound stodgy and dull, even to myself. What was I missing? Think about effective speakers, right? How could I convey the gut-wrenching reality of the brain as a motivational furnace? And how do I get it across? About 6 or 7 years ago, I began to talk more candidly about my own messy emotions. I culled examples from my past, exposing the dark side of my own brain, and that got their attention. Emotional contagion. Especially when I revealed that I had been a drug addict through most of my 20s, something I had locked away from public scrutiny for nearly 30 years. Professors aren't supposed to be drug addicts, past, present, or future. This was interesting. So again, come back to my observation that effective speakers are both emotional and personal. And I think those are key components as we build speeches and as we endeavor to communicate on a level that is effective and memorable, emotional and personal. And if you, like me, say, well, who am I? Who am I? I'm just a plain, I've had nothing like that. You know what? We've all had these deep personal experiences. And if we can mine that reservoir of deep personal experiences, a couple of weeks ago, I joined this club and Steve gave a talk about having to have a meal with his father on the eastern seaboard that really consisted of protein bars, and it was a really touching story, right? Touching stories. We've all had experiences that touch us, and we can touch others through those stories. Stories are the currency of human communication. Before the written word, oral traditions, history was shared from generation to generation through stories. We are a collection of stories, experiences, our history, our insights, our relationships, your stories and my stories. Again, I haven't climbed Everest, but thanks to the good fortune that has come my way as a result of Toastmasters, I've been able to meet people who have. I've never won an Olympic medal, but I've met people who have. Never won a Nobel Prize, but I've met people who have. At our core, we are all similar. A friend of mine once said, that which is most personal is most universal. And so as we endeavor to be effective, as we want to be ourselves, Toastmasters, in addition to giving us leadership and speaking skills, also gives us a place to mine our own lives and find ourselves. And then we find the confidence to share ourselves. And we can change people's perspectives. We can change people's, it sounds bold, change people's lives. But you know what? We've all been triggered by somebody along the line who has an idea or a story, or let me tell you what happened to me, or the 8 most powerful words in the English language. If I can do it, you can too. We respond to those things. So my urging to you is to be yourself, but through this program, find yourself. And then through the skills that you develop, share yourself. Coming back to Oakland, right? So I had a speech about a friend who showed up with an 18-wheel truck in Idaho Falls, and he said, I need to be in Canada tomorrow morning and I need your help. Would you go with me? And so look, that was a kid's dream come true. Henry Schaffner was the driver. We got on the road, just on Milligan Road, south of Pancari. We were headed to Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, to pick up a load of hogs. And before we got to Roberts, Idaho, he had pulled this big rig, 53-foot trailer, Peterbilt tractor over to the shoulder. And I said, Henry, what's going on here? You passed the rest area, so maybe you don't have to go to the bathroom. He said, no, I got to go take a nap. He said, you got to drive this thing. He said, I needed your help. You're driving. And look, every kid's dream is to honk the air horn and to drive a semi, but be careful what you wish for. Those dreams come true. And that became my speech, my contest speech at the regional conference. And it was so vastly different to any of the motivational offerings that anybody else had on offer. I thought, oh dear, but you got to dance with the one who brung you. And I just gassed it on that talk and had a lot of fun. A lot of fun. But my challenge was that sleeping guy from Toastmasters International. My challenge was Stan Stills was still asleep. Well, I had traded a talk to a Boy Scout troop on the way to Rigby from Idaho Falls. There's a truck salvage yard owned by John Holt, and he asked if I would talk to his Boy Scouts. I said, yes, but I'll trade you for an air horn. He said, what? I said, I need an air horn for this talk. He said, how long do you want it? I said, oh, well, how long you got? He said, I'll give you one that's 30 inches long. And so, friends, I had rigged up an air horn from a semi as the prop, as the closing bit for that talk. And I had charged it with an air tank that I had brought along with me. These are the days before TSA. You could actually travel with that stuff. And I unveiled the air horn at the end of the talk. Every male in the room went to the edge of his seat, and I blasted that horn, and I can assure you, Stan Stills was no longer asleep at the head table. The title of that talk was Driven to Dream. Toastmasters has allowed me to be driven towards my goals and to achieve many, many of those goals and to have dreams come true. And it all started right here in 3505, staying alive. Thanks to friends just like you. And so it's a real privilege and a pleasure to come back to Idaho Falls, to my home club, and spend a little time and tell you a few stories and a few secrets. Be yourself, find yourself, then share yourself. Thank you.